Hello Revolution students, and welcome back to another video on the Russian Revolution area of Study 1. In this video I'm going to look at Trotsky and how he contributed to the 1905 revolution and the October 1917 revolution. So let's get into it. First, in relation to the 1905 revolution. So he was elected chairman of the St. Petersburg Soviet when it was first formed in October 1905. So he was from this point a very, very famous revolutionary. And he was, as a consequence, one of the few prominent revolutionaries to take part in the 1905 revolution. He was a key player in the Great Strike that occurred from October 1905 up to December 1905. And this is where he became very famous within Russia. And he retained that fame and built upon it right up to October 1917. He did not take part in the February 1917 revolution because he was out of the country like so many other revolutionaries at the time. Particularly many of the Bolshevik leaders were out of the country, such as Lenin as well, who was in Switzerland. One thing we need to realise is that Trotsky was not a Bolshevik until quite late in the piece. So he was a member and one of the leaders of the Mezrayonsky faction between May and June 1917, and he only joined the Bolshevik Party after the July days in 1917, along with many of these Mezrayonsky faction members as well. He was elected chairman of the St. Petersburg Soviet on the 25th of September 1917 after the Kornilov affair, and he was, I remind you, a Bolshevik by that stage. And as the chairman of the St. Petersburg Soviet, he had a lot of influence over, obviously, what the Soviet did. And when he was elected chair of the St. Petersburg Soviet, this coincided with the Bolsheviks gaining a majority both in the St. Petersburg Soviet and the Moscow Soviet as well. With his power in the St. Petersburg Soviet, he was influential in creating the Military Revolutionary Committee on the 9th of October 1917. There were 3 Bolshevik members on the committee and 2 left SR members, so it was a 5-member subcommittee of the St. Petersburg Soviet. And it was set up originally. It was set up originally to try to stop a Kornilov-style coup d'état occurring from, or overthrow, an attempted overthrow occurring once again by a general trying to overthrow either the St. Petersburg Soviet or the provisional government. So that was its reason, its original motive for being set up. But its other key attribute or key motive was that it now allowed the Bolsheviks to gain control over the military within St. Petersburg, because through their control of the St. Petersburg Soviet, the majority in the St. Petersburg Soviet, through their control of the Military Revolutionary Committee, and as a consequence of Soviet Order Number 1, most of the military in St. Petersburg and even throughout Russia looked towards the Soviet and took the orders of the Soviet rather than the provisional government by this stage in the revolution. Another key act of Trotsky's was that he supported Lenin's motion on the 10th of October 1917 against Kamenev and Zinoviev to try to get the Bolshevik Central Committee to agree to an insurrection against the provisional government. This motion, which Lenin put up, did get through because of Trotsky's support and the support of other leaders. And even though the Bolshevik Central Committee didn't agree to an actual date for this insurrection, it did agree to actually staging one. And it was very, very important because it enabled then the Bolsheviks to react very quickly when Alexander Kerensky attempted to shut down their newspapers and also throw many of the Bolshevik leaders into prison on the 23rd of October 1917. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, Trotsky's key act was to be the principal organiser of the October 1917 revolution. So Lenin delegated his the responsibility for running the actual coup d'état against the provisional government to Trotsky. Okay, so that is our summary of how Trotsky contributed to the 1905 revolution and the October 1917 revolution. Let's have a look at a couple of historical interpretations now. So the first one is from Richard Pipes, and he writes, With mastery of the technique of the modern coup d'etat, of which he, Trotsky, was arguably the inventor, he led the Bolsheviks to victory in October 1917. Trotsky was an ideal complement to Lenin, brighter and more flamboyant, a much better speaker and writer. He could galvanize crowds. But Trotsky was unpopular with the Bolshevik cadres, in part because he joined the party late, after years of acerbic attacks on it, and in part because he was unbearably arrogant. During the Revolution and Civil War, he was Lenin's alter ego and indispensable companion in arms. And the second historical interpretation here is from the HCPSU, and it writes, during the Sixth Party Congress, the Mezryansky declared that they were in agreement with the Bolsheviks on all points and requested admission to the party. The request was granted by the Congress in the expectation that they would in time become real Bolsheviks. Some of the Mezryansky, Volodatsky and Uritsky, for example, actually did become Bolsheviks. As to Trotsky and some of his close friends, they, as it later became apparent, had joined not to work in the interests of the party, but to disrupt and destroy it from within. So there are a couple of contrasting historical interpretations about Trotsky. I hope you found this video on his contribution to both 1905 and October 1917 revolutions useful for your study of the Russian Revolution, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.